I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I honestly don't even know where to start because my life just got turned upside down in the worst way possible. I've been with my wife, Lisa, for almost 5 years. We met when we were both in our late 20s, and honestly, I thought she was the one. She was smart, funny, slightly bitchy, but in a way that kept me on my toes. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. Things weren't perfect, but I wasn't expecting anything major to blow up so suddenly. We had the usual fights, money, her constant mood swings, her lack of interest in intimacy. But I shrugged it off. I figured everyone has problems, right? Plus, I always thought she loved me, or at least I wanted to believe that. She was a little manipulative sometimes, always playing the victim, saying she was stressed or under a lot of pressure, which I tried to be understanding about. But lately, I'd noticed her phone was glued to her hand more than usual, and she was sneaking around with her texts. Little things she'd hide her phone when I walked into the room, delete messages, and pretend like she wasn't hiding anything. I dismissed it at first, told myself she was just being paranoid. Then came the wedding. Yeah, we finally decided to get married after years of back and forth, and I was pumped. Thought this was the happiest day of my life. We planned a pretty simple outdoor wedding, and everything was supposed to be perfect. But looking back, there were signs I missed. She was unusually tense leading up to the event, snapping at me over small things, canceling plans last minute, and always having her phone in her hand, hiding it from me. I chalked it up to wedding nerves. She told me she was just stressed, that she wanted everything to go smoothly, and I believed her. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be a fun, relaxed night, just friends and family. Instead, it turned into something else entirely. I was sitting at the table trying to relax when I saw her texting someone, long, flirty messages. I didn't think much of it at the moment. I figured it was just a friend or something harmless. But then I noticed her phone buzz again and again. I decided to sneak a peek when she stepped away to the bathroom, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Her messages with this guy, his name was Mike, were not just flirty. They were planning how she was going to run away with him after the wedding, how they couldn't wait to be free and start their new life together. Words like, "I'll finally be happy," "This is what I've always wanted," and "Can't wait to leave everything behind" jumped out at me. I stared at the screen, frozen, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I loved, was secretly planning to leave me for her best man. The same guy who was supposed to stand by my side while I married her. It was like everything I believed in was a lie. I felt sick. I felt betrayed. I wasn't sure if I should cry, yell, or just walk out right then and there. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I quietly put her phone back and waited until she returned. When she did, I looked at her with a different kind of cold, something I'd never felt before. I wanted to confront her right then, but I decided to hold it in. I was trying to keep calm, but my mind was racing. How long had this been going on? Had she been lying to me for months? Was everything a lie? I knew I had to find out more, but I also knew I couldn't just ignore what I'd seen. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything I'd seen on her phone, trying to make sense of it. The betrayal ran deep, and I felt an overwhelming mix of anger, heartbreak, and confusion. I knew I'd have to face her soon, but I didn't know what I was going to say or do. All I knew was my world had just shattered. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind kept circling back to what I'd seen. The texts, the plans, the way she'd been lying to me for months. I needed answers, and I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine anymore. I got up early, made a cup of coffee, and sat on the porch trying to gather my thoughts. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see the signs of her sneaking around. But in the end, I guess I was just blinded by love, or maybe just too damn naive. I decided I'd confront her that day. No more hiding. I couldn't keep living in this fake world where she was lying and planning her escape while pretending everything was perfect. I didn't want to be that guy who just swept it under the rug. I wanted the truth, no matter how ugly it was. So I called her into the living room, and her reaction was almost instant. That bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was in control. She looked at me with those eyes that said she already knew I found out, and then she started her usual bullshit. "Oh, Jake, she said, crossing her arms. You're overreacting. You always do this. You're just paranoid because you're nervous about the wedding. Honestly, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. She looked at me like I was the crazy one, like I'd lost my mind. But I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. I pulled out her phone, laid it on the table, and showed her the messages. Her face twisted into something ugly, the kind of look you get when you're caught red-handed. Her reaction, she immediately started denying everything. That's not what it looks like, she spat. You're just jealous because I'm nervous about the wedding and trying to make me feel guilty. Guilt? Yeah, right. I'd seen enough. I told her I knew she'd been planning to run away with Mike since the rehearsal dinner. Her eyes widened for a moment, then she started her typical gaslighting routine. You're crazy, Jake. You're seeing things. Maybe I was just talking to Mike about the wedding, or maybe I was venting. You're just insecure and you're jealous he's my best man. You don't understand how much I love you. She looked so convincing, so fake, that for a second I almost believed her. But then I remembered the words, run away, leave everything behind, all those plans she'd made. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was blowing things out of proportion, that I was just paranoid because I was nervous about the wedding. She threw in a few tears, a little fake hurt, and I felt sick. I couldn't believe I married someone capable of this level of deceit. It was like I'd been living in a bubble, and now that it burst, I was left with this hollow feeling. I told her I needed some time alone to think, and she just stormed out of the room, calling me crazy and accusing me of ruining her life. I stayed there, numb, staring at the phone she just snatched away from me. I was furious, heartbroken, and somehow already planning my next move. I knew this wasn't just about some affair or a few texts. This was her trying to run away, to start a new life behind my back. Over the next few hours, I couldn't focus on anything else. I kept going over the evidence, trying to understand how she could lie so effortlessly. Like she was an actress and I was the naive audience. The thought of her in bed with Mike, laughing, kissing, or whatever they'd done, it made me physically sick. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her manipulations. I wanted to believe she loved me, but now I knew she'd been planning her escape all along. I felt so stupid for trusting her, for thinking she was just stressed or overwhelmed. Eventually, I decided to follow her just to see where she was going. I didn't tell her, of course. I needed to see if she was actually planning to leave, and if so, where she'd go. I followed her car to a cheap motel about 15 miles from our place. She was there, waiting in her car with her phone in hand. She looked nervous, constantly checking her surroundings. I parked down the road, watching her through binoculars I'd grabbed from the closet, feeling this strange mix of rage and heartbreak. I saw her get out and go inside, and I knew for sure she was planning her escape, and I was about to get the full story. That was just the beginning of what was to come, and I had no idea how much worse it was going to get. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying everything I'd seen, every text, every lie she'd told. My mind was racing, trying to connect dots I never wanted to. See, connect. I felt like a fool. How could I have been so blind? Lisa, my wife, the woman I loved, was planning to run away with Mike, her best man, while pretending to be this perfect, bitchy wife. I kept asking myself what I did wrong, what I missed. Was I not enough? Did I somehow push her away? Or was she always just pretending to love me? I didn't have the answers, only a deep, aching sense of betrayal. In the days that followed, I stayed quiet, watching her every move. Part of me wanted to confront her again, but I was trying to gather my strength. I needed to get real proof. I needed to know how far this went. I also knew that if I confronted her without evidence, she'd just deny everything and turn it around. So I started checking her phone more carefully, hiding in the shadows when she talked to someone, following her to see if she'd leave again. One morning, she was acting even more suspicious, more nervous than usual. She kept looking at her phone, texting, then hiding it when I came near. I finally decided I'd had enough. I confronted her again, this time with more evidence. I'd installed a spy app on her phone, and I'd been secretly monitoring her messages for days. When I pulled out my phone and showed her the logs, her face went pale. She tried to lie, but I had enough now. The truth was staring her right in the face. Her excuse. She said she was just talking to Mike about wedding stuff, that nothing was going on, that she'd been stressed and upset and he was just comforting her. Her voice was trembling and her eyes were pleading. I didn't buy it. I told her I knew about the plans, about how she'd been planning to leave me, how she'd been planning her new life with Mike since the rehearsal dinner. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, calling me crazy, saying I was paranoid, that I was ruining everything. She insisted she loved me, that I was overreacting, and that I was just jealous. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her I was done with her lies, that I wasn't going to sit around while she planned to ditch me. I told her I had enough proof and that she would have to face the consequences, and that's when she snapped. Fine, she spat. If you're so fucking paranoid, then maybe I should just leave. Maybe I was planning to leave you all along. Maybe I don't even love you. Her voice was venomous, her face twisted with rage and frustration. You're just a boring, insecure bastard who can't handle a woman having a life of her own. That hit me like a punch to the gut. The woman I'd loved, the woman I thought I knew, was calling me insecure, suffocating, and unworthy. I felt my stomach turn, and I knew that from that moment everything had changed. I was done pretending to be the fool. I told her to pack her shit and leave, that I didn't want to see her face again until she was ready to tell me the truth, if she ever would. Over the next few days, she behaved even more bitchy, pushing every button she could find. She told me I was overreacting, that I was controlling, that I ruined her life. But I didn't care. I didn't care about her excuses or her tears anymore. The damage was done. The betrayal was too deep. Every time I looked at her, I saw a stranger, someone who had been lying, cheating, and plotting behind my back for months. I felt numb, like I had been turned into an empty shell. I started thinking about the future, what's left of it. Do I try to forgive? Do I stay and try to rebuild? Or do I cut my losses and walk away? Honestly, I don't know. All I know is that I'm devastated and angry. I trusted her with everything, and now I can't even look at her without feeling sick. I learned that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people just lie and betray you, and you have to pick up the pieces after. The biggest lesson I've taken from all this: never ignore the signs, no matter how much you want to believe in someone. Because when they're planning their escape while you're still trying to hold everything together, it's a betrayal worse than I could have ever imagined. After she finally left, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. For days, I didn't really do much besides sit in this apartment, staring at the walls, replaying everything in my head. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't even cry anymore. It was just this numb, hollow feeling. Every morning, I'd wake up thinking about her, about the lies, about how she'd been planning this entire time. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see that she'd been up to something so terrible behind my back. That's when I started to piece together the details. I noticed her phone was missing more often. Her mood swings got worse, and she became more bitchy, more dismissive. It was like she was pushing me away deliberately. I found receipts for secret hotel bookings, texts from Mike that she'd hidden in the deleted folder, things I should have seen from the start. But I was so blinded by hope, I refused to see the truth. Now it was all too clear, and it haunted me. The thing that really shook me was realizing how much I'd invested in her, emotionally, financially, mentally. I had plans for us, a future, a life. And she just threw it all away because she was unhappy or bored or whatever bullshit excuse she'd tell herself. I kept thinking about those moments when she'd pretend to be affectionate, when she'd whisper sweet nothings, how she'd been lying every second just to keep me around until she was ready to bolt. It made me feel like a fool, but also furious. I couldn't, however, just sit here and do nothing. I knew I had to take some action. I started researching how to handle this kind of betrayal, how to shield myself legally and emotionally. I talked to a lawyer just to understand my options. I knew I couldn't stay married to someone capable of planning her escape with her best man. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the complete breach of trust, the deception, the lies. I knew I needed to protect myself, my assets, and my sanity. One thing I realized through all this heartbreak was how much I'd lowered my standards, thinking that love could fix everything, that maybe she'd come around and see how much I cared. But no, I knew now it was a mistake. Love doesn't fix lies like these. Trust is everything, and once that's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. I started to accept that maybe I'd been holding on to something that was never really there. That's a damn hard lesson. As days passed, I kept telling myself I deserved better. I started to think about what I really wanted, whether I wanted to try to save this mess or just cut my losses and move on. Honestly, the idea of starting over was terrifying, but I knew it was necessary. I couldn't stay in a marriage filled with so much betrayal and hurt. I needed to get out of this and rebuild my life, even if it meant starting from scratch. I also took some time to reflect on myself, what I'd learned, what I'd do differently next time. Trust has to be earned and maintained, not taken for granted. I realized I'd been too easygoing, too trusting, and that was my mistake. I also learned that some women are just manipulative, and you have to keep your guard up. Not everyone is worth fighting for when they're already planning their escape behind your back. I wish I could say I'd do things differently, but at the end of the day, I just want to move forward and find a way to be happy again. So now, I'm just trying to pick up the pieces. I've told a few friends, and some of them think I should sue her for the wedding costs or even try to get some kind of revenge. Honestly, I'm not in that headspace right now. All I want is to focus on myself, get healthy mentally and emotionally, and figure out what's next. Because if I've learned anything, it's that the worst kind of betrayal is the one that comes from someone you trusted with your whole heart. And trust, yeah, that's the thing I'll never give away so freely again. It's been a few weeks since she moved out, and honestly, I'm still trying to process everything. Some days are better than others, but the pain of betrayal is still fresh. I keep thinking about how everything fell apart so quickly, how she went from being this bitchy, manipulative wife to someone who was just planning her escape behind my back. Every time I see her face in my mind, I get this mix of anger and sadness. I trusted her. I loved her. And she threw it all away like it was nothing. That realization hits harder than any punch. I've started focusing more on myself. I went back to the gym, trying to clear my head and get physically stronger. I've also been seeing a therapist, not because I think I'm crazy, but because I need to get through this without losing my mind. Talking about everything honestly helps, though some days I just sit there, silent, trying not to cry. I'm also reconnecting with friends I'd ignored for too long, people who remind me that I'm not alone in this mess. They're the only reason I'm still standing. The hardest part now is figuring out what I want from here. Do I want to try to fix things? Do I want to fight for my marriage? Honestly, I've grown so tired of the lies and the betrayal that the idea of working things out feels like just throwing good time after bad. I know she's not coming back, not after what she did. I can't trust her anymore. And I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm constantly suspicious or waiting for her to do something else behind my back. So I made up my mind. I'm going to file for divorce. Not because I want to be petty or revengeful, but because I need to protect myself emotionally and legally. I want out of this toxic situation. I want to rebuild my life from scratch without all the baggage and lies. And honestly, I think I'll be better off alone than trying to fix something that was never really there in the first place. But even as I prepare for that, I keep asking myself, how did I let it get this far? How did I not see the signs? Was I just too naive? Or was she just really good at hiding who she was? The truth is, I don't have all the answers. All I know is that I trusted her and she betrayed that trust. Now I'm left with the scars and the hard reality that love isn't enough to save a relationship built on lies. Looking back, I wish I'd been more cautious. I wish I'd listened to my gut when I first started noticing the red flags. But honestly, I thought I was in love. I thought she loved me. Turns out I was just a fool to believe it. And that's a lesson I'll carry with me forever. Trust is fragile. It takes years to build, seconds to break, and a lifetime to repair. And in this case, I think I've learned that sometimes you just have to let go and move on, even if it hurts like hell. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. Trying to pick up the pieces, trying to rebuild my life, and trying to remind myself that I deserve better. Because no matter how much it hurts right now, I know I'll come out of this stronger. I just hope someday I find someone who's worth trusting again. For now, I'll focus on healing and making sure I never let someone betray me like this again. It's crazy how life can change so suddenly. One minute, you're planning a future, believing you found your person, and the next, everything's shattered into pieces. I never thought I'd be the guy who got betrayed this deeply, but here I am, trying to pick up the remains of what I thought was my life. I've learned some hard lessons. Trust has to be earned and constantly maintained, not blindly given. I also learned that people can pretend to be someone they're not for a long time, and you only realize the truth when it hits you like a ton of bricks. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever fully get over this betrayal. It's left scars that will probably stay with me forever, but I also know I'm starting to heal, slowly but surely. I've stopped blaming myself for her lies and manipulations. I see now that she was never really committed to us, that her plans for escape had been in motion long before I ever suspected. That hurts more than I can put into words, but it's also a relief in a strange way. At least now I know the truth, and I can move forward without her dragging me down. I've come to accept that some people are just capable of doing terrible things, things that can't be fixed or forgiven. That doesn't mean I'm giving up on love. It just means I'll be more cautious, more guarded. I'll never allow myself to be blind again. From now on, I'll pay closer attention to the signs, to the subtle clues that show someone's true nature. I won't settle for anything less than honesty and loyalty, and I won't let anyone manipulate me again. This experience has changed me, no doubt. It's made me more aware of what I need and what I deserve. I've realized that I don't need someone who lies and cheats to be happy. I can find happiness on my own, rebuild my life, and learn to trust again, just wiser this time. The pain will fade, but the lessons will stay with me. I'll carry them forever, and I hope someday I'll find someone who's worth trusting with my whole heart again. To anyone going through something similar, I'll just say this: don't ignore the red flags. Don't let love blind you to the truth. And most importantly, don't be afraid to walk away when someone shows you who they really are. Because the only thing worse than betrayal is staying in a lie. You owe it to yourself to be happy, to be honest with yourself, and to never settle for less than you deserve. That's what I'm going to do now. I may be wounded, but I'm also stronger for having survived this. And I'll keep moving forward, one step at a time.